All right, this could be a long one. Welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show by Michael Pinter. I'm Michael Pinter, and I'm going to do housekeeping first, right? Because this one may be very, very long. I don't like to talk long, but this is a very, very broad topic. So, first of all, if you like these videos, click like. Please give me a thumbs up. It helps for my SEO, my search engine optimization. If you are watching on Facebook, there are 7 ways I can help you above. Go to howtoflipnewyork.com to get more information. If you're watching on YouTube, you can look below. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please click subscribe. And please comment. Comments get answered very quickly. This is by request, and I have a whole list of topics to get to, so I'm going to get to them as soon as I can. Today's topic is, what is a good deal and what does a good deal look like? And I got to tell you that that's a very broad topic. I mean, it's not a simple thing to answer. What is a good deal and what does a good deal look like? But I'm going to try and answer it. I'm going to try and answer any question. If anybody asks for something to be a topic to be handled on video, I am going to do it. So here we go. This is not easy, right? We all think when we get into this business and we're going to talk to sellers that we believe that some guy is going to call us or some woman's going to call us and they're going to say, I'm desperate for whatever reason, all right? My house is about to be foreclosed on some crazy reason that they need to sell, and just take my house. And you're going to throw out a ridiculously low number, and they're going to say, okay. That's usually not what happens, right? Because there's a lot of factors involved in what they will sell it to you for. The most obvious ones are sometimes they owe a certain amount on it and they need to pay that off, or other price expectations. They're thinking, I need $100,000 to get out of here to go buy something else or to rent or to feel comfortable, and that's the number that they have. So it's not a simple thing. What you have to do on every deal is you have to comp it out, and you have to figure out what the property is really worth. Now, there is the number one way to do that is on multiple listing service, MLS. And the way to get access to multiple listing service is to get licensed as a real estate salesperson or broker, or to have someone who gives you access, right? Maybe your sister's a realtor and they give you access. Or you know a realtor and they can give you administrative access, which is regular access anyway. Then there's 1A, which is PropStream, right? And I can get you, I think I'm the only person in the world that gets PropStream at a discount. I refund 10% after 3 months. The link is below for that. It's redatanow.com. But there's the one way, that's 1 and 1A, and there is no 2, right? That's it. You can't use Zillow and Trulia in New York and expect to get accurate comps. Comps means comparable property, so you can figure out what a property's worth. And all the other service, people tell me the ways that they're comping on properties, and I'm amazed, right? And I changed my mind on something recently, because I used to think that if you, let's say your spouse, your sibling, your parent, your child was a realtor, you could ask them to comp out a property. And I don't believe that that is a real good way to do business for 2 reasons. The first is everybody has their own biases, right? So, for example, you ask your sister to comp out a property in Freeport. She once had a deal in Freeport that died because flood insurance was too high, and she says something like, stay away from Freeport. Now, we all have our own biases, right? If you did a deal in Freeport and you got screwed on a deal in Freeport, for example, and you don't want to do deals in Freeport, that's fine. You can have your own biases, but you should never be letting somebody else comp out properties who's got their own biases, who's got their biases, because you've got to deal with these things from experience. So that's the first problem. You're dealing with all their BS in their heads, and we have enough in our own heads. We don't need somebody else's junk in their heads affecting how we view properties. But the second thing is, it's such an important skill as a real estate investor to comp out properties yourself, that if you're not doing it, in my mind, it is a huge mistake. Now, I know there are people out there who say, oh, my VAs comp out properties for me. And I understand that. You know, Tom Kroll talks about that. Who's a great guy. I've met him from Wholesaling. He grew up in Long Beach, but he operates in Port St. Lucie. And there are people who operate in areas where the range of what properties go for is like between $100,000 and $140,000. That's just not the case here, right? Phoenix, Vegas, Dallas, all these cities, these huge cities, were all built since 1980, right? It's very easy to comp out properties. In our area, stuff's built I bought a house that was built in 1898. Stuff was built earlier. There's more variety. It's a much bigger area. It's denser. You need to be able to comp out properties yourself. I would not advise having somebody else do that. Somebody you trust or somebody you pay for. At some point in your business, you can have acquisition managers whose job is to comp out properties. But when you're starting, you need to be able to comp out properties yourself. So for those two reasons, dealing with other people's mess in their heads, and just so you have that skill of comping out properties, everybody should comp out their own properties. And remember, there's really one way and one A. There's access to multiple listing service, and then there's PropStream. That's it. There is no two. Those are the only two ways. So you need to be able to comp out properties. Now, how do I comp out properties? Every time I look at a deal, I look at it three ways on MLS. The first thing I look for is what's the ARV, what's the after repaired value, and I look at what that means is fully renovated houses, what they're going for. So I'll see what they sell for. That will give me an idea of the ARV. I will also, this is still part of one, I will look back on the public data and I will see what the investor paid for it. Now, that is not always an accurate representation because the investor might have bought it a year ago or a year and a half ago, but it gives me some kind of idea. The second thing I do is I look at what investors are paying for properties right now. So that's REOs, which are bank-owned properties I'll look for, and I'll look for short sales. Now, because those are usually bought by investors. Now, or I'll look at a real, junkers that were bought, you had to be bought by an investor because they're in terrible condition. Short sales, you got to be careful because they might have gone into contract 2 years earlier also. Short sales can take a long time. But that'll give me an idea of what investors are paying for and what the ARV is, the after repaired value. But the third thing I do, and this was really a life-changing thing for me, is I look at what crappy properties are going for right now in the retail market. That allows me to get a wholesale price, right? And again, since I've been working, so I started doing this full-time 2013, the gap between what people will pay for a fully renovated house, a 9 or a 10 out of 10, versus what people will pay for like a 4 or 5 out of 10. Just, it has to be mortgageable, they have to be able to get a loan. That gap is narrowed, right? And very often, if you look at the property on a wholesale situation, you can get a deal that anybody else who's looking to wholesale it or rehab it will never get. Will never even imagine buying. I've certainly booked at least $1 million in profit using this in recent times. I just did one recently. I mean, like a couple of weeks ago, where it just wouldn't make sense if you had to renovate it, but it wasn't in such bad shape that I couldn't sell it on the retail market as is without doing anything to it. I thought I would do a little bit to it, but not much. I ended up doing nothing to it. I sold it in 2 days. 2 days. So, I mean, a contract in 2 days. So, that's the three ways that I look at every property, right? What's the ARV? The properties that have been renovated, what do the investors pay? What are investors paying right now? So I know to wholesale, I could see if guys are paying for crap right now, I know I can sell it to them. And then I'll look at what's the wholesale price. Those are the three ways that I'm looking at every deal. I'm trying to make notes because there's so much going on here. So one of the big parts of figuring this thing out is estimating repairs. That's not an easy thing to do, right? It's something that you learn over time. And I'll give you an example. I'm wholesaling a property right now. I know I can fix it up for 40 grand. For sure, it'll be close to perfect. But estimating repairs is tricky because what you do, exactly what you fix up and what you don't fix up could be different on every property. How much it costs in each area, right? Bigger kitchens are going to cost you more than smaller kitchens, are different. And then what you pay, what your contractor charges you is different. So let me tell you what happened in the property that I'm wholesaling now. I know I can do it for 40, right? People ask me how much work it needs. I told them 60, right? I bumped it up 50%. 2 people came by and go, this needs $120,000 worth of work. Yeah, sure. So I never argue with them because I could spend $120,000 fixing up the house. I could spend $320,000 fixing up the house. So that is tricky, right? That's tricky. So when you wholesale or when you rehab, the two numbers you need really are ARV and repair estimates. And estimating repairs is not easy. You get it better over time. But what you can't do, and what these guys probably did, is get a regular retail home remodeler's estimate, right? People tell me, I'm just going to bring a contractor. If you bring a regular retail home remodeler in there, you're going to get a crazy high price, right? Really for 2 reasons. First of all, they mark up everything a lot. They make a big profit, 30, 40%. They'll mark up materials, they'll mark up labor, everything crazy high. Second of all, they're going to make everything absolutely perfect because they don't want to deal with a homeowner who's going to say, hey, one of the tiles is off in the bathroom. Now, you can't have a guy, and they'll spend 4 or 5 days tiling a bathroom, right? I can't do that, right? You can't do that. You don't have the time for it, and everything doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It just has to look nice. So estimating repairs is a tough job. So now we're going to get into really what is what is a good deal and what does a good deal look like? So ideally, right, I buy a property that gives me three options, right? And sometimes you can only have two options depending on the condition of the price, the condition of the property. So ideally, you're going to buy a property at 70% of the ARV minus repairs. Ideally, um, that will usually give me multiple options, right? The first option will be I can wholesale that property to another investor because most rehabbers here will buy a property around 80% of ARV minus repairs. Now, understand, if you're watching how to figure out what a deal is in other areas, that it might be 70% for a rehabber in other places. But we have a huge gap because our ARVs, our after repaired values, are so high. You know, $500,000 is probably a typical ARV for me. That's $100,000 on 20%. So in that is built in his profit, his holding costs, his closing costs. So a great deal is where I have option to either wholesale it, right? And sometimes I can't wholesale it. Why can't I wholesale it? The seller flakes out on me and won't let me show it. The Every person I show it to says it needs more repairs than I think it does. It happens. So then I know I'm going to close, right? Because in New York, when you go to contract, you're going in hard. There's no way out. There's no inspection contingencies like you see on the internet from other people doing this in other places. There's no way out. So I know that I have to either assign the property or I have to close on it. So ideally, a good deal is one where I can either wholesale it. I might be able to wholesale it if it's in decent shape, right? It doesn't work for properties that are knockdowns, if there's holes in the roof, if there's no kitchen, if it's mid-construction, if it's if it's been winterized and no one knows if the systems work, you can't wholesale that property, obviously. But sometimes, you get lucky. Sometimes you take one of those properties and you turn on everything and everything works. Or I need to rehab it. I have to do all the work to it. So those are the great deals. The deals where you have options on what to do. So if I can buy a property at 70% of ARV minus repairs, then I'm usually good. But sometimes I can wholesale. I can pay more for a property than that calculation, but there's enough of a spread. So I recently bought something in West Hempstead where I bought it for in the fours, and I knew I can sell it for high fives without doing almost anything to it. And I did that. Right now, figuring in rehab, everything, the house wasn't perfect. I paid more for it than anybody who was going to rehab the property, right? Because what it was worth, if it was fully rehabbed, wasn't that different from what it was worth as is. It was in pretty good shape. So that's the third way to looking at it. So you have to figure out, and you have to be good at comping properties. And I think I'm going to do some videos on me comping properties. Well, I'll share my screen with you, and you can see what's involved in comping out properties. But a good deal is not something that's going to punch you in the face and say, hey, that's what we think, right? We think we're going to market. Some guy's going to be desperate. He's going to come to us and go, I need to sell. Just give me any number. And we're going to figure out a property, we're going to buy a property for a $300,000 property for a $100,000 property. That's usually not what it works. You got to spend the time to comp out properties. It's an acquired skill. You've got to spend time to estimate repairs. It's also an acquired skill. But that's really what a good deal is to me. A good deal to me is where I can book, I average about $30,000 on wholesale deals and wholesale probably 30, 40. And on rehabs, 60, 70 probably. But if I can book enough of a spread, really you make your money on the buy. And a good deal is something where you can figure out. Again, good deals give you options, right? Good deals make you feel comfortable that if you can't find a wholesale partner for it, who you're going to wholesale to, you're comfortable buying it and doing either no work to it and putting it on retail, or doing significant work to it and putting out retail on a rehab. So that to me is a good deal. Good deal is something where I'm not afraid, right? I know my number. I'm set. I'm set. Whatever happens, I'm going to make money on it, and that's a good deal to me. I hope that answered the question. I hope it did. I don't know how long I've been talking, but it's probably longer than most. Again, if you like these videos, click like. I really could use a thumbs up. And my phone number's below. Comments get answered. If you have any questions about this video, I don't know if I covered everything. I don't know if I did such a good job. I probably didn't. You can ask questions in comments, and I'll answer them right away. And I hope this was helpful. And thank you for watching.